right. Hello and welcome to the Spacejumper Podcast. My name is Jared and I'm your host. Today we have a very special guest in the house, someone who represents Houston and represents unity and the people, Miss Lindsey Brown. You are doing some amazing things with the foundation. And, I think, a good question to start out would be, what is Southern Smoke?
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here. Southern Smoke Foundation is a nonprofit that provides crisis relief grants to anyone in the food and beverage industry nationwide. And we also provide access to no-cost mental health care, currently in 5 states, about to be in 10. And for those who live in states where we do not have a mental health care program, they can apply through our emergency relief to get that mental health care. So those are really our 2 pillars, are getting people out of crisis and then providing that mental health care.
Wow. Yeah, I think that's a great way to help the community because, myself, I was in the food and beverage industry for the longest. And those are both 2 very important things, because if the restaurants are closed or something happens, that's, money that you are missing out on,
Right.
If your your mental health isn't there, help is definitely, needed. So I was under the impression that it was, a Texas organization, but this is actually global?
National.
Okay.
So we're in all 50 states and Puerto Rico.
Wow.
But we started just Houston. Actually, we started for just as an annual fundraiser festival. A friend of ours back in 2015, a sommelier friend of ours, was diagnosed with MS. And a couple of months before that, we'd had a local chef who also had MS and did not tell anyone and ended up dying by suicide because he could no longer hold his knife. And it was a shock to the entire community because none of us knew that he was going through that. And so when Antonio was diagnosed with MS, he's like, I want to be the face. I want people to ask me about it. And so it was his idea to do a fundraiser. And so we're like, sure, let's do it. And that was sort of the first backyard festival for Southern Smoke. And it grew 2 years. We raised money, a lot of money for the MS Society. And then in 2017, we were about 6 weeks away from our festival again. And Hurricane Harvey came through. And so we realized really quickly that all of those fundraisers that were happening, the Red Cross, the Mayor's Fund, J.J. Watt, and all that amazing money he raised, none of that was going to get into the hands of a dishwasher or a busser or a bartender, a farmer. Because the farmers, they lost all their crops too in the flooding.
Right.
So we realized pretty quickly that we could not raise money for the MS Society that year, that we had to figure out a way to get money in the hands of the industry. And we had already gotten a 501c3 the year before, and so we started looking into it, and we did have the ability to provide individual grants. So we created an application, and we translated it into English, Spanish, and Vietnamese, and we went around Houston and try to convince people that we were the real deal, that we actually were raising money. We had this festival coming up. We had friends around the country that were doing fundraisers in their restaurants for us. And so after festival that year, we were able to grant $501,000 to 139 people in the food and beverage industry that were affected by Hurricane Harvey. And at that point, at the same time, there are fires going on in Napa, there are tornadoes going on in Tennessee, and it's the same across the country. Nobody in this industry has a safety net. And so we very quietly became a national organization. I think Napa-Sonoma County was the second check that we wrote outside of those 139 families. Wow. And we were ready for what we were not expecting, which was a pandemic. And so we hired our second employee February of 2020. And Chris and I, so Chris Shepard is a chef and he's my husband and co-founder. And both of us we're like, are we sure we need a second employee? Do we really have that many applications coming in? And she was hired in February and the pandemic hit in March and it was hectic. We ended up hiring 40 furloughed restaurant workers to be case workers. So they were still able to get paid. They helped us work cases. We were really, really lucky that we had a lot of good partners come in at the very beginning. The Houston Texans were supporting us. Tito's supported us. We got significant grants from the Restaurant Workers Community Foundation. So we didn't really have to focus on fundraising during those 2 years of the pandemic. We could just work on getting money out the door.
Sure.
And so 2020, we granted $6 million to people around the country.
Oh my goodness. Wow. And the impact that made on people's lives was probably ginormous, you know? And you know, when COVID hit, that was such an odd time, you know, because at the time I was actually working as a line cook at Papado Seafood.
Really?
Yeah. And so shout out Papado, by the way.
We love Papa's restaurant.
Yeah, they're like one of the very few restaurants that I've worked at that I would go to every single day, because I saw how they clean their kitchens in the evenings, and how they're, strict with their food and what comes out of the kitchen and things like that. So yeah, I learned a lot of good values working for that company.
They're big supporters of ours. We love them. So yeah.
Yeah. That Papado platter and the fondue, man, that fondue will do it to me.
Yes.
But yeah, no, that's very amazing. And you guys are definitely stepping up to the plate when it comes to, helping. And I think that's a big part of support, the support that you guys are giving. So in this initial idea, with your friends that had gotten MS, that was what, 2015? 2015. Wow. And here we are almost a decade later. And,
I know.
And you guys have made so much progress.
It's crazy.
I bet, the journey was just insane.
I mean, we never would have anticipated this. But, you don't know what you don't know. And so
Exactly, yeah.
we just did it. And, I think back to that very first festival, and we joke about it all the time, because we didn't even know what we were doing then.
Right.
So we went to visit Susan Christian, who's the director of special events for the mayor's office, just to ask her to close a couple sidewalks for us. And she hears what we're about to do, and she's like, we're going to give you the city stage, and I'm going to tell you every single vendor to use, and they're going to give you a discount because you're doing such great things. And Chris and I walked out of her office, and we're like, I think we're throwing a festival. Like we just wanted to throw a little backyard barbecue.
Right.
And so just even something as simple as that very first event, because we had so many wonderful supporters, and because we didn't know what we didn't know, we just did it.
Right. I think that's the key to doing anything. You just start it, and things start making sense along the way.
Exactly. And I think the mental health program was pretty similar. So that was something that we started talking about in 2018, and that was right after Anthony Bourdain's death.
Right.
And we had our festival, and one of Chris's chefs at one of his restaurants said to us, he's like, you have the best minds in the country for food coming in. Why don't we do something like have a round table? And we're like, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's have a round table. And so we brought everybody in, and it was like a closed session. It was chefs only, no media, no spouses, just the people that were cooking in the industry, and just started talking about what do you see that's a problem? And keep in mind, this is 2 years before the pandemic, when all of those cracks in the industry started to show.
Sure.
But what we took away was that mental health was a major issue, and that back then people were still afraid to talk about it. People were afraid to seek help. People were afraid to talk to their supervisors about it. And so we knew that needed to be our second pillar, that if we could get people help with mental health care, they might not end up in crisis. So it's being proactive for our crisis relief mission. And it took 2 years, and it was actually the pandemic that directed us. The University of Houston has a mental health clinic. Oh. And they had to shut down during the pandemic, and their PhD students couldn't get their hours. And so Mental Health America knew that we were looking for a program, and they're like, maybe you guys should talk. And what we didn't realize at the time was that there are universities around the country that have very similar mental health clinics to U of H. And that program where the PhD students get hours and food and beverage workers get counseling could be replicated across the country and provide pretty consistent care state by state.
Wow.
And so, because if we were working in the private sector, you have no idea if therapist A is giving the same kind of support to their clients as therapist B. But we know, because they're all members of the same association nationwide, these university clinics, you have your PhD candidates, you have your supervisors, you have your researchers. One of our partners at NYU told us, he's like, when my daughter needs therapy, I want her to go to a university clinic because it's the most supported. And so the way that it works is that we grant the university, so it's a win-win. It's money for, higher education.
Sure.
And in exchange, they provide us a certain number of slots for industry workers. And each person who qualifies, which means they have to have worked in the industry for 6 months at 30 hours. Those are both of our programs, emergency relief and mental health.
Right.
If they get their employment verified, then they have intake plus 20 free sessions or 6 months of therapy, whichever happens first. And then if they want to continue, they are offered to continue on a sliding scale. So what we've found in the 5 states that we're in is that there's a significant retention. People stay, which is not normal in the food and beverage industry.
Exactly.
Not normal in therapy, and not normal if you have no financial investment because they're not paying anything. But I think because the access alone, it's hard to find a therapist.
Right, yeah.
Plus the fact that it doesn't cost anything is one of our keys to success. And there are so many options within the university. If you don't click with your therapist, they will find someone that you do click with.
So let me just kind of back up a little bit.
Yeah,
so
sorry.
You're saying just
I jumped ahead.
No, it's okay. So anybody that's in the food and beverage industry can apply if they meet these requirements and get help, whether it's mental health or if a crisis has occurred, then you guys will review these applications and get back with them independently.
Correct.
I see. Wow. So that's big. And
Yeah.
and I don't think that that's known, I don't think that it's widely known in the food and beverage industry because there's so many people that this setup, this organization that you guys are running can help, you know, and that's excellent. I think that this is very big.
What we've found is that when our strongest form of marketing is word of mouth, because
Sure.
if someone gets funded in a region or at a restaurant, we see a lot more applications from that region or from that restaurant. Same with people participating in the mental health program. I think it almost takes a personal connection for people to be like, okay, it is the real deal. And we've seen that also on our donor side, that if someone personally knows someone who's been funded or used our services, they're more likely to donate to us or to buy a ticket to an event.
Speaking of, you guys' events are amazing. I mean,
Thanks.
I've been to 2 of them. It was the most incredible experience that I had in my life. The first time I went, I think it was the first time that Trillburger had their pop up, and Bun B went up there and did a concert, and everybody was just having a blast. And I was like, this is crazy, because it's right when I moved to Houston, and it was such an experience, and it was such a flood of positivity. Kudos to you guys for being able to set up such a successful event. I mean, because it's really amazing. Yeah.
Well, I think one of the reasons that our events work so well is because people actually want to cook at our events. Chris is a chef. He's been a chef for a long time. He's cooked at a lot of events. And there are a lot of events that sort of exploit their chefs. There are a lot of events that say that they give to charity, but it's the tiniest percentage.
Right.
And so one of we run our festival like a regular charity event. Like, we do our absolute best to keep our expenses at 30%, and everything else goes back to mission.
Wow.
But it's hard to do
Sure.
because we want to also show hospitality to every single chef that comes into town. So we think it's hypocritical for a chef to cook at our event and come out of pocket. Because what are we doing? We're supporting the industry. So why would you personally have to come out of pocket to support the industry? So we really work hard, and we're grateful for our partners that support us. So we can pay for food costs. We can pay for flights. We can pay for hotel rooms. We can make sure that they have coffee in the morning before they, go cook all day.
We need these guys fully energized.
Exactly. So that's something that's really important to us.
Right.
And earlier this year, we launched our second signature event, which is Southern Smoke Decanted. It's a wine auction. And, as I mentioned, like we fund restaurant workers, we fund farmers, we also fund everyone in the beverage industry. And so that was one way for us to remind people that like wine, spirits, like we fund you, we fund vineyard workers,
That's incredible.
we made sure that the winemakers that came to Decanted were treated just as well as we treat our chefs, because again, that's who we are taking care of, and
right.
we can't not take care of you when you're coming to raise money with us.
Right. And these guys are more of like artists, it is an artist of food. I mean, I am a big fan of food, and when you go to these events, you have Aaron Franklin himself slicing brisket, and you're getting everything straight from the source, straight from the talent that, and it's just a great spot to be, So
Aaron's the only person who's cooked every year.
Really?
Yep. And so like he's on our board. We love Aaron Franklin, but it's funny because even this year at Discovery Green, like he's already chosen his spot. He gets to choose where he cooks. He wants to make sure that things work in his way, because I mean that's why he's so good at what he does. He knows logistics. And he has his own festival in Austin called Hot Luck, which we are also beneficiaries of. So he knows a little bit about throwing festivals also. So yeah, we love him.
Yeah, well, there's always a line everywhere.
I know. And we always say like there's not a line everywhere, but there will be one at Franklin.
Oh, yeah.
I remember it was 2017 and David Chang cooked at our festival. And I think Dave was even surprised because, I mean, at the time, he sort of still is the most famous chef in America and beyond, but he literally saw people running right past the Momofuku tent straight to Franklin. Texans love Aaron Franklin.
Yeah, that barbecue is just something else. It really is. And it doesn't matter what anybody says, is if they just taste it and they're going to be completely speechless, and it's definitely an art. Like, there's no other way to put it.
Yeah, I agree.
With the influx of applicants and things like that, is there like, how are y'all limited on how many people that you could help?
That is an excellent question. We're pretty lucky that we do have a pretty deep reserve. But at the same time, this year we did not plan for the Houston storms.
Right. Yeah,
I don't think anyone did.
Another monster.
Usually we're able to, have time to put a plan in place for, a couple of days before the hurricane is coming. But the derecho surprised all of us.
Yeah, it did.
And so we have funded nearly $300,000 to people affected by that storm, because when you think about it, there were so many restaurants that were closed for 6 days, 7 days. And so we were just lost wages alone, not even counting people that had property damage. So something like that, we did have to use reserves. We're always asking for support in situations like that.
Right.
We've had one situation where we have not been able to fund every single person immediately. And that was last year during the Maui fires. And, you don't think Maui, Southern Smoke Foundation, but it was another one of those situations where we reached out to a couple of people we know in Hawaii and said, let people know that we're here. And the minute people started getting funded, everybody started applying. And when you think about the residents of Maui, they all are qualified. Like they're all 6 months in the industry, 30 hours a week, because that's how you make your living in a tourist destination like that. And so we have funded about $300,000 in Maui. We have about 400 people still on the wait list, and we are funding one Maui person every single week until we get through that wait list.
Oh my gosh.
Because we don't have, the 1.5 million just to fund them all immediately.
Right.
But we know that even a year from now, 2 years from now, they're still going to need that money.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and those fires were just devastating.
Devastating. And when we talk to the people that are still on our wait list, they're in a worse place now than they were right after, because not much has come back in that specific neighborhood.
Right. Man, that'll make you sick just kind of thinking about the stuff that, that they have went through.
Exactly.
How do people help with Southern Smoke?
I mean, there's a lot of different ways. So, I mean, the easiest way is just to go to our website and click donate.
Sure.
We have events happening all over the country, which is really wonderful. We've got tickets for our festival go on sale on July 9th, which is very exciting.
That is
but
exciting.
we have an event this Saturday called Respect the Rosé that still has a couple of tickets left. We're doing a dinner at Tony's that, yes, is going to be really fun. But we've also got an event coming up in Boston, because Massachusetts is one of our new states for mental health. Oh. And so there's a chef in Boston, Karen Akunowicz, who's James Spirit Award winner. You might have seen her on TV. But she, Stephanie Azard, and Jamie Bissonette are throwing a big kickoff party for the Behind You program, which is our mental health program in Massachusetts. And so that's a fundraiser if anyone knows anyone in Boston. And then we're doing a little mini festival in Napa at the end of July. So we're bringing 6 chefs with us. There's going to be 6 wineries pouring. So we're definitely trying to not limit the events to just Houston or just Texas. We want to make sure that people know that we're everywhere. We have a lot of restaurants that donate $1 for every
for like every
dish
beer.
or every burger. There are all kinds of different ways.
Sure. That's amazing how people contribute to this, because it's so crazy what you guys have been able to accomplish, and all of these problems are popping out of thin air, and you guys are able to help people, and I think it's, like I said, I think it's really amazing. So what would you say some of the key achievements and milestones for Southern Smoke have reached, since you guys have started? And I know that there's been a lot of obstacles along the way, but you guys have seemed to, be very successful in the mission,
We're very proud of the fact that we just hit $12 million in grants to
that is
individuals
crazy.
in the food and beverage industry, and 5,000 mental health sessions. But I think we've done a really good job of keeping our partners on board. Like Lexus has been with us since the beginning. Getty's been with us since the beginning. Resi's been with us for many years. They believe in us, and we try and be good partners in return. We never want to be that kind of group that just takes. We want to give back to them and make sure that they're seeing value in their partnership with us. But then, like fun things. David Chang won $1 million for us on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Like, that's pretty cool.
Wow. I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah. He's the only celebrity to have ever won $1 million.
Oh my God. That's insane.
Isn't that insane?
That really is, yeah. And I never really thought anybody actually won.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing is that the reason we found out it was even happening, because Dave had sort of teased it to Chris and said, I got something in the works for Southern Smoke, but he couldn't say what because he had an NDA. And then ABC emailed me to get our banking information and had accidentally a Dropbox link on the email. And so I just was sort of clicking through the Dropbox link, and it was like Dave and Jimmy Kimmel posing. And,
oh my God.
And then the last photo was a photo of them holding the giant check. So
oh my God.
We knew before the show aired. But
that is amazing. Yeah, that's.
But I'm glad we knew, because it still made me nervous, even knowing.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, that's a big milestone.
Yeah,
that's good. Shout out to David. That's
I know,
amazing.
right?
Yeah. Wow. So, can you think of any particular events, or I say events, times where you guys have reached out to somebody and you have saw just like how much that you guys were able to help?
I mean, all the time. And so also, I'm a co-founder with Chris, but I just started as an executive director a year ago. And so being now on the inside as an actual staff member, I see so much more than what I did before. Also because I meet people and I recognize their cases. It's all an anonymous process. Nobody
Sure.
knows except for staff. Chris doesn't know anything.
Right.
But we were just in Aspen for Aspen Food and Wine, and we're the beneficiary of that festival as well. And Hellberg Barbecue out of Waco had a fire earlier this year, and we funded their staff. And so the two owners of Hellberg happened to be there at festival at Aspen and came up to us and said, like, we don't know what we would have done without Southern Smoke.
Oh my goodness.
And like that afternoon, we're like standing in a hotel lobby, and a chef named Caroline Glover out of Colorado came up to us, and she's like, "You guys don't know me. You saved one of my cooks." And that one was an urgent case. We got him into rehab within 24 hours and paid his rent while he was in rehab. And Caroline told us that he just hit 1 year of sobriety.
Oh my goodness.
I know.
That's
I mean,
exciting.
it's things like that
Yeah.
you hear all the time, and the impact. And we did this event on the top of the mountain, and it was the Food and Wine Best New Chefs and Southern Smoke together.
goodness.
And so Caroline told that story to everyone on the top of the mountain, and it was like there was not a dry eye up there.
Oh my goodness.
Because it's real.
Yeah.
You know, it's not Chris and I just up there saying, you know, we did this. It's someone who has personally experienced it. And, you know, I just want to shout out to our case management team. They're incredible. And they're, especially during the Hawaii fires, during the Houston storm, working around the clock, getting people funded as fast as possible. Like, our team is so small and it is mighty. And I mean, we have 4 caseworkers. That's it.
Wow.
And they're
Just chugging
able
along,
to,
yeah.
they're
Incredible.
changing people's lives every single day.
Wow. That's incredible. Man, I love hearing stories like that,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And everybody has a story, you know?
Yeah.
So that was it sounds like a turning point to something so much bigger, you know?
Yeah.
And that's really great. So, you know, you were talking about just becoming executive director and just kind of, you know, stepping into this role. What does that role kind of entail?
It's sort of a little bit of everything. So I don't work cases, but I did help with employment verification during the Houston storms just because
It was so wild.
it was
Yeah.
wild. And the only benefit of it happening in Houston is that we know so many people in Houston. So I
Right.
could call up, you know, Blue Dorn and be like, hey, can you confirm how long all of these people have worked for you and how many hours a week? And it's so much easier than like looking at pay stubs and, you know,
Exactly,
just
yeah.
having people to call and just go through the list and yes. And then the caseworkers can go.
Wow.
So I did help with that this year, and that was I don't know, it was cool because I felt like I was contributing to the whole process.
Sure, yeah.
But, you know, fundraising, event planning, making sure that the staff is good, because that's the other thing. When you're dealing with heavy stuff like this all the time, like we need to be taking care of ourselves as well.
Right.
That was one thing that we saw during the pandemic. It's just all day long, and I mean, really every day, all day long, they're just hearing stories of people in crisis and just making sure that they're taking care of themselves.
Right. No, I agree. It's really amazing. I mean, I'm almost at a loss for words because I mean, I didn't even know that this was a thing until, you know, a couple years ago when the first time that I went to one of you guys' events. And then, you know, it wasn't yet like, yes, it was like just an awesome event, but it's like, what are these guys doing? And you know, and that's when I became more familiar with y'all's connections with the food and beverage industry and things like that. But you know, even you move in positions, you know, because I know that you were there from the very get-go of this thing. It kind of reminds me, you know, even in the food and beverage industry, even like a restaurant or something, you know, you kind of have to go through these different roles to fully understand this business. And it sounds like that's what you have been able to do, you know, because even some of the most successful managers or whatnot have, you know, they started, whether it's, you know, washing dishes and kind of made their way up, you know, and kind of have a full knowledge of what it is that they're dealing with. And yeah, like I said, it sounds like you guys have really achieved that. But what were some of the biggest challenges that you guys faced in the early days of starting this foundation?
I think it was trust.
Oh,
That was the biggest thing when it was in 2017 during Harvey that we had to convince people to trust us with their private information.
Right.
Trust us that we're not going to share that information. And for a lot of people in this industry, they didn't want Chris to see it. And that was a big thing. I'm like, no, Chris doesn't see anything, and nothing is shared, and it's 100% anonymous. And so we still, to this day, if you fill out an application, there's a box that you can check that says, well, two boxes that are protecting your privacy. One, is it okay for us to check with your employer to verify your employment? And if they don't check the box, we don't call them and we just look at pay stubs. And the second is, would you be willing to speak about your experience with Southern Smoke, whether it's to the media, whether it's at an event? And if they don't check that box, we will never ask. So privacy and being cognizant of taking care of our applicants is important. You know, we talk about it all the time that like our organization is not World Central Kitchen. There are not visuals of us serving food, you know, in the middle of a disaster. That's not what we do. Like our work is behind a computer. Like it's not visual. And so to provide some sort of depth of what we do, it helps to have somebody speak about their experience, but we have to be really sensitive about whether that's an appropriate ask or not. And so we're always navigating that. But luckily our caseworkers spend enough time with each applicant that if I say, you know, there's a TV station in New York that wants to talk to somebody, usually they'll be like, this person will do it because of the way that their interactions had been. And so that's helpful, but that's a challenge, is trust, because we have to. It's a fine line. Yes, we want to get the word out about what we do, but we also have to protect everyone that is coming to us for help.
Right. I like that. I like that it could be almost incognito if need be, you know, because a lot of people like to keep their situations under wraps, you know. And
we talk with restaurant owners and chefs a lot, and there are two things that some have said to me recently that like really hit home. One was a chef in Chicago talking about our mental health program, and he has a saying to his staff. He's like, "I am not qualified to hear what you're about to tell me, so here's a card for Southern Smoke."
Oh, wow.
And then the other one is a chef in North Carolina, and she's like, every single time one of my employees is in trouble, my first instinct is to open my checkbook and help them. And she's like, but I can't, because that messes up the balance of employer-employee. It messes things up amongst the other employees. They need to come to us.
I see. So it kind of separates that responsibility, you know.
Exactly.
Because I mean, those are people that are interacting on a constant basis, you know. So I guess favoritism and things like that wouldn't, or I guess, you know, it would look like, you know.
Right. Exactly. And it takes so much of the pressure in both situations, for emergency relief and mental health. It takes the pressure off the restaurant owner, because they're not trained. And I'll be honest, Southern Smoke employees are not trained either. We are crisis, yes, but in mental health, we are not. We are the conduit for our mental health partners at the universities. Like we had also while we were in Aspen, it was a very impactful trip to Aspen. There was a chef in New York who was not there. He was in New York, but he had a sudden heart attack, and died. He was 45 years old. Really well known, and a lot of people that were in Aspen worked with him, worked for him, and so the whole community was devastated. And we were working with Food and Wine about what to do, and we were in a very unique place that we have these mental health partners that can help us. And so we talked to our mental health partner from Yeshiva University in New York. He put together a list of ways to deal with sudden grief. He put together a list of how you know if you need to see a therapist. And we were able to share that. Food and Wine shared it through their channels. We shared it through our channels. We did have a Zoom call if anybody wanted to come and ask him questions. And that's a super unique relationship, to be able to have a therapist ready to help
Right. And
in a situation that none of us were expecting.
right. And the fact that you guys are offering that is amazing, because I mean, these are things that just people in their daily lives don't even think about. You know, they could be in a rut that they don't actually know that they're in a rut.
Exactly.
You know,
I mean, and that list that he gave us about how to know if you need to see a therapist, it was, I mean, made us all think.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah,
these are the signs that you can't handle this on your own.
Yeah, I think that's great, you know, and it's a weird time, you know.
Yeah.
We have technology and things that are kind of impacting people's way of thinking, you know, and so whatever that may be. But it sounds like that you guys are progressing past that. What kind of difficulties are you running in for, like, now, for instance?
I mean, it's a pretty boring answer, but
Well, that's always good.
yeah, so we are efficiency. You know,
Ooh.
How can we give our caseworkers, and also on the flip side, our people working on our development team, the tools to do their jobs better? And so we're like building out a Salesforce database where we're getting our case management team off of spreadsheets and into a real database. And so like that has been a big project of 2024. And I think we should be live with it in the next month. And in a perfect world, this new system that we're building is going to help us with accountability to make sure that there's no way any applicant can slip through the cracks.
Right.
Because let's be honest, I mean, there is human error that somebody misses an email, and the worst email to miss is someone in crisis, but that's every email that our caseworkers get. And so that's something that we're trying to figure out, like how that can just be eliminated. How, you know, we can report on things, because that's really helpful to know if you're talking to somebody from South Carolina, like this is how many people we've granted in South Carolina. This is how many people we've granted in Charleston specific, or, you know, just being more accountable all the way around.
Right. Wow. Yeah, I think that accountability is definitely important, and especially, you know, and not even fully accountable on you guys' side, but you know, accountability of the applicants and things like that, you know, because you know, it you know, it goes both ways.
Yeah.
You know, you get slipped through the crack both ways. I just recently had a new physician on, and we were talking about, you know, people slipping through college and getting in med school and all these things. So, you know, I guess it goes both ways. But and that was another thing I was going to ask you is, you know, about your future goals and aspirations in Southern Smoke Foundation. But it sounds like, you know, you guys are trying to line it out to be more efficient and to make progress on that end. And also shout out to your team, because 4 people?
Yeah. I know. They're amazing.
That's impressive, you know. And how many emails are you guys getting in a day, you think?
Well, I would say before the Houston storm, we were getting about 10 to 15 applications a day.
Right.
During the Houston storm, it was 50,
Crazy.
60.
Oh, my goodness.
And now, I don't know if you've heard, but there are the fires in Ruidosa.
I didn't know.
And so we've been getting some New Mexico.
Where's Ruidosa?
New Mexico. So we've been getting
New
some
Mexico.
New Mexico applications. So it's just, the world isn't slowing down.
Right.
So, and we've got a new person, so we'll have 5.
Wow.
We're a director of program operations, or assistant director of program operations, starts July 15th. And she's going to be amazing. She's going to make the team even more efficient than they already are. So we're just...
Yeah, you got to love those people that
I know.
that add that aspect to the team, because efficiency is definitely a unique skill.
Efficiency, but also like remaining empathetic, because that's the other thing, is that, again, the people that are reaching out to us are in really, really tough times. And so finding that balance of moving quickly through the process, but also being, you know, an understanding person.
Right. What kind of parameters are you guys looking for for these applicants? I mean,
So it depends. So, once they're verified with their employment, it depends on what are they asking. Are you asking for funding because your bike got stolen and you can't get to work? Essentially, at that point, we need to know, what kind of bike it was and how much it's going to cost to replace.
And you guys do that?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
We had our chief mission officer talked down a car repo guy. Like there was somebody's car broke down and they couldn't afford to fix it, and so it got repoed. And then because it was repoed, they couldn't afford to get a new car. And so she got on the phone with the repo company, negotiated, I will give you like 50% of what you're asking for to let this guy go. And then the other part of it we used for a down payment on a car. Like, I mean, and I asked her, I was like, did you ever in a million years think you'd be doing that at work? And she was like, no, I never did.
That sounds like a success. Yeah. And
it got him what he needed.
I'm sure that applicant was like so thankful.
Yeah.
Because I mean, when you're in a bind like that.
Exactly. And that's the thing. It spirals. And so, it's the same thing with, the car situation. You can't get to work. So that means you're not getting paid, and it just becomes worse and worse and worse, right. And until you feel like you're in a hole that you can't get out of. So that's the other thing that we will work with for people, help them get on payment plans for like medical bills.
Oh, wow.
Like maybe we pay for a portion of it, and then help them figure out how to get on a payment plan that's not going to drain their income.
Yeah, that's big. Because a lot of these positions, they don't offer insurance, and they don't offer things like that. It's just mainly a tip, I guess tip wage.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
and we're seeing a lot more like big medical cases that are heavy and expensive, and so we're always trying to make friends with our hospital friends and ask them information and what should we do in this kind of situation to help with this bill, so we have a lot of people we can talk to in that way.
Yeah, that's excellent. And I know those hospital bills, they add up too. I mean, even recently I had a procedure done, and I went in for I believe it was probably like a 10-minute, like is the day before the operation. I went in there for 10 minutes. And man, I think I got like a $1,500 bill for it, just to go in. And they said, all right, yeah, everything looks good for surgery tomorrow. See you tomorrow. And tacked on, and it's like, oh no, I mean, what do I do now?
Right, and that's the thing is that the bills keep coming. Like same thing happened to me. I had my appendix out last year, and I have insurance and like pretty good insurance, and I just kept getting bills for. I think my last one came like 2 months ago, and I had it last September, so it's a lot.
Ridiculous. Yeah. And it could definitely, that digs holes for people, you know,
does.
and sometimes holes that people have a very hard time crawling out of, and so, like I said, I think that it's just such an amazing thing that what you guys are doing and the things that y'all stand for. So I guess as far as future plans, I mean, are there any upcoming projects or things that you guys are excited for? I know you said that the rosé is coming up.
Is this weekend.
Ooh, that's going to be fun.
It's going to be fun. We're excited. Always excited about festival. So tickets on sale July 9th. Festival itself is October 5th. And then it's a big goal of ours is to grow Decanted. Right. I think that a really thoughtful wine auction in Houston could be a very big fundraiser for us, but also just a great addition to the city.
Absolutely.
Because Houstonians love to drink wine.
Oh, gosh. I have a friend, my friend Nick, and every weekend he's like, you ready to go to 13 Celsius? We need some organic wine, so.
Well, speaking of 13 Celsius, so we're changing some things up for festival this year.
Oh.
So in the past, we've had distributors pouring at the wine bars, which doesn't really mean anything to the general public. So instead, this year, we're having wine bars pouring at festival. So 13 Celsius is going to be there. Montrose Cheese and Wine's going to be there. Lee's Den, Stella's. Bacchanal's coming in from New Orleans. Lolo's coming in from Austin. Central Market is going to take over the Lake House in the middle of Discovery Green. So they'll be the only air-conditioned wine bar.
Oh, my goodness. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out Central Market, by the way.
We love Central Market, and we love HEB.
HEB is just, I love HEB.
Yeah, they're huge supporters of ours, and they're just the best.
Yeah, I have to stay away, especially on like the every second Friday of the month, because that's I get paid the next week, so so I can't go in there because I mean literally all their simple meals and things that they have are just amazing.
Yeah, they're great.
But that actually, I guess it's not the best transition, but that makes me think that, okay, so I was reading up on you earlier, and you actually went to University of Texas and got your public relations degree. That's amazing. How has that helped with your current career?
Well, I think I was doing PR until a year ago. So I was doing restaurant, food and beverage PR, basically.
Right. What does that mean?
So I was doing PR for restaurants, and basically, if you read about a restaurant in the newspaper or see them on TV, there's usually a publicist behind that. And so most of my clients were Houston-based. I had a couple that weren't, but it was I think that my specialty was national PR. So I really like working with national publications and just really getting Houston on the map in a big way.
Sure.
Houston food and beverage places on the map in a big way. And so when our former executive director resigned last year, she went to go run Discovery Green. So it all sort of comes around full circle.
It does come around full circle.
She said, I think you should take this job. You've been involved, and I think you should do it full time. And so I thought about it and made sure that my clients were taken care of by other agencies, and here I am.
Boom. Wow.
But I think it's helpful because I can see messages, I can see stories, I think the narrative of what we do is important, and so that's sort of how a publicist thinks.
Sure.
Like one of our auction items from Decanted was to brew a beer in Jackson Hole, and then the sales of that beer will benefit Southern Smoke, and the person who won it is a winemaker. And so I'm very excited for this beer to be released because I feel like that's an incredible narrative that this very famous winemaker helped us brew this beer, and now everyone's going to want to try it.
Wow. I want to try it. I'm a big fan of beer. I like beer.
I drank more beer in Jackson Hole last weekend than I have in a long time, but it was very delicious.
Yeah.
I'm not normally
like
a big
nice
beer
lager.
drinker. Yeah. No, that's kind of what it is.
Yeah.
It's like very cold, very easy drinking, like
oh my goodness.
not too hoppy.
Yeah, I need some of this.
Yeah.
So how has working with Chris kind of maneuvered the direction of Southern Smoke? I mean, because everybody's like, oh, I can't work with my spouse, but it seems like you guys have made it work pretty well.
Yeah, well, so we worked together before we were together. So we have a history. So I was his publicist forever. But it's funny because he will tell you that since I've had this job, he has worked harder for Southern Smoke than he ever has. And like, I get paid by Southern Smoke. He does not get paid by Southern Smoke. And so I do a lot of arm twisting too. Yeah. But he's such a great spokesperson. It's hard not to.
Wow.
So
that's hilarious.
And he loves it. He loves it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He has. Do you guys work pretty close together, like throughout the days? Or I mean,
it depends. So he's got his new show on KPRC, and so if he's filming, he doesn't come by the office or anything like that.
What show is this? Eat Like a Local? Mm-hmm. Okay, I saw that on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I think that's excellent because a lot of people are coming to Houston and they don't know what to get. They don't know the inside scoop on where you could get the best burger or where you could get the best XYZ.
Yeah.
And I think a platform that goes out and shows these places and talks to the chefs and kind of shows their the inside, I guess, process on the mechanics of how of this big oiled machine that's pumping out excellent food. People want that, and I don't think that there's a lot out there that does it. And there's influencers and people that are on TikTok, going and trying different places, and I think that that's good. But I think what I saw that Chris was doing that I liked is he's going and showing the full process
exactly and
so,
telling the stories of the people,
right? Yeah, because
how
everybody
did they
has
get
a story.
Here to Houston, why are they cooking the food that they're cooking? No, it's funny because when he had restaurants, he would get recognized when we were out, but it's nowhere close to how much he gets recognized now.
Wow, I know. I think it was last year, the event, and I was gonna go up and shake his hand, but man, there was like 15 people around him, and I'm like, man, I'm sure he's tired of shaking hands.
He loves it. He loves it.
But yeah, no, it's really amazing.
Yeah.
So what keeps you motivated specifically?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm definitely a workaholic by nature. So
definitely,
I want to get us to a point at Southern Smoke where it doesn't feel like things are crazy all the time. And, I want to get to a point where, whether it's on the fundraising side, whether it's on the case management side, that things are running where we don't have to scramble. And I think an organization this small and this new will always have a little bit of that because we're young and we're scrappy and and it's hard. There are opportunities being thrown at us all the time, but I want us to get to a place where it's just not so crazy all the time.
Yeah.
And it's most of the time it's crazy in a good way.
Yeah,
because
right.
there's just a million things happening. But it just, I think, for all of our sanity.
Yeah, like I said, you guys are working like a well-oiled machine because like I said, you have so many tasks throughout the day. You got just a couple people flipping through and making really important decisions. Of a lot of different applicants. That's big.
It's big.
And it's easier said than done. Anybody that sits down and does the task is probably like, oh my God, it's a job, so
exactly. Even our brand manager, she's fantastic, but the things that are thrown at her all day long, whether it's like a sponsorship deck or social media art or a proposal for a new university, and she just rolls with it, and she's a total pro, but
you got to love those people.
Love.
So is there anything that, I know you said this year you're incorporating the wine bars to kind of take over the wine pouring and things like that. What other cool things do you think that Southern Smoke could add to their venue to increase We've
got a bunch of new things this year. So we're doing a demo stage for the first time.
Oh.
So Yeti is presenting a demo stage. We're going to have 6 chefs doing 20-minute demos. So Christina Tosi from Milk Bar is coming in, Brooke Williamson, Anna Castro for Mean Nunez. So that's going to be really fun. We've never done that before, so hopefully it works. We're going to have cookbook signings. So our friends at Kindred Stories Bookstore are going to be out there. And so we're going to have a scheduled book signing for all the chefs that have books, because I feel like that's a super personal thing where people can meet them face-to-face and take home something. And then we're having bartenders. We've always had bartenders, but sort of name bartenders. So Alba Huerta from Julep will be behind the bar in the VIP area. We're going to have Sean Umstead from Kingfisher in Durham, North Carolina is coming in. They are a big supporter because we're going to have a mental health program in North Carolina next year. So he wants to jump on board. We're going to have Travis Tober from Nichols City, which is new to town. And then we're going to have Justin Ware from Johnny Skullbrick.
Very cool.
So they'll all have sort of signature cocktails, but also if you want a vodka soda, you can order that from them too.
Right. There's a bartender that I've kept up with over the past couple years, and his Instagram handle is Cocktails by Hawk. And I mean, he has this big mohawk, and he's just flipping and doing all kinds of crazy stuff with the glasses and pouring behind his back. I mean, it's really crazy. But yeah, bartenders and their presentations matter. You know?
Yeah, it does. And for the longest time, we were trying to figure out how to get the beverage community more involved in festival. And we're like, why don't we just invite them to pour?
Right.
So that's going to be good. Oh, and then one more new thing. So we obviously have a partnership with Food and Wine Magazine, and so we will have a whole section. So it was the section where Trill was last year. We call it Waterside Landing.
Okay.
Over by the lake. And all of the 2024 Food and Wine Best New Chefs from around the country will be cooking together for the first time. So they get announced in September, and then they'll cook at festival in October. And so we know who they are.
Oh.
But nobody else knows who they are yet.
Oh. That sounds amazing. I'm definitely getting a ticket.
It's
as soon as they come out, I'm getting one. I have to. It's the best. It's the best event in Houston.
I feel like we've added a lot of value this year. So
well, is it going to be a 3-day event like it was last year?
No. So it was the one that you were talking about in 2022 was 3 days. Last year we dropped it down to 2 days, and then this year it's 1 day only because we moved the wine portion. That's decanted now. So we figured that we needed to separate them and make them their own events. And so we have a lot of ancillary events for the chefs.
Right.
We have a welcome party, we have a pool party.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Want to make sure that they're taken care of. But general public, 1 day only.
Wow. I think that's good. I think that, all I could handle is 1 day of excellent food anyways, because I go in.
And we don't want people to have to choose. Should I come on Friday or should I come on Sunday or, and so we want all the things to happen.
Yeah, the reason I was asking if it was a 3-day event is because, what's been big lately is these mural fests.
Mm-hmm.
These people have been doing a lot of murals and things like that. So that's just, I always like watching people create these murals. I don't know if you've ever watched it before. It takes around a couple days and depending on the size. And I mean, it's just insane. I mean, the images that these guys could make, I had a guy come out from Austin. He did this and he spent about 3 days on that.
Yeah.
And I mean, just watching the process from start to finish it's just really amazing.
It is incredible.
And so mind blown with what you guys are doing and the organization itself is very solid and the cause is just very also very solid, So I guess a little bit about yourself before we wrap this bad boy up. I did see that you were also the co-founder of a ballet.
So I was a dancer growing up, and when I moved to Houston, I was very excited because I love the Houston Ballet. And my friend Christy and I started, it doesn't exist anymore, but it was called Ballet Bar, and it was the Young Professionals group to get young people involved in the ballet so they can grow to become donors. And so Houston Ballet remains as amazing as it is.
Sure.
But the two of us, we created this one event that still does exist called Raising the Bar. And we pair chefs and dancers, my
cool.
two favorite things.
Yeah.
And they do a 4-course meal. And so the chefs and the dancers will meet ahead of time and they will come up with a dish together, whether it's based on where the dancer is from initially, what their favorite meal is, what their favorite role is. And I think the cool thing about it is that I've seen the culinary community and the ballet community sort of come together because their lives are really similar. When you think about it, they have the same hours. They're essentially on stage, just in a different way.
Yeah.
And they're creating art. And so I'm very happy that dinner still exists. So it's an annual event every year that benefits Houston Ballet.
Wow. That's so cool. I like that you guys are involved in things that you like, and that's how you make things work.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's very respectable. Like I said, Southern Smoke Foundation is just a really amazing thing that you guys have created, and what you guys have done is amazing, but I'm sure that you are not anywhere near being finished, and you have a lot more greatness coming in the future. So keep on doing what you're doing. I'll definitely be buying a ticket to Southern Smoke. And thank you so much for coming today.
Well, I appreciate you having me on.
All right, we're good to go.